all for being here. Before we get started with some other announcement, I want to start off to let us know where we stand in Baltimore City with our latest crime statistics and numbers. We are down 25% in homicides year over year, down 7% in non-fatal shootings. Carjackings are down 35% in Baltimore, and violent crime overall is down 7%. These significant and very important decreases are important for our city. I want to thank BPD, Monsi, our community, and everyone who has helped bring us to the point. But we are going to continue this work and want to continue this momentum each and every day. And that's want to continuously thank everybody that goes out and works to build public safety in Baltimore for the tough, deep, hard work that they do. I would also want to note that we are exactly 1 month out from the horrific mass shooting that took place in Brooklyn, and our thoughts and prayers and our efforts as a city government continue to be with all the families who were victims and those who reside there. We're continuing to wrap our arms around that community, providing the services and community stabilization efforts that we activated in the days following, and we'll continue to provide those services and continue to actively participate in the Brooklyn community. I want to extend my continued well wishes to those who are still recovering, whether that be physically or from the collective mental trauma from witnessing such a horrific incident. While there is not an update that I can share about the ongoing investigation, I will assure all of Baltimore again that BPD, our state, and our federal partners are working. We have the best detectives working this case, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we, as quickly as humanly possible, noting with the outcome that we want when we bring these folks in, that they do not go back out, that we will bring them in. Just so that you know, this investigation remains a top priority for me and my administration. We're continuing our activation in Brooklyn. Today, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is partnering with Councilwoman Porter and MOED to host a hiring fair at Brooklyn Homes to be able to provide job opportunities for those who are in need of them in Brooklyn. And as we all know, community engagement and stabilization is critical in our efforts to realize a safer Baltimore. For this reason, yesterday, we crisscrossed the city with many of you for a National Night Out as communities across Baltimore gathered to nurture police and community relations in Baltimore City, because we know all of Baltimore stands united against those who perpetuate acts of violence on our streets. I want to thank all of those who participated in every neighborhood, from the very young to the very seasoned, because that is the true mark of Baltimore. National Night Out is always one of my favorite days because you see the true spirit of the city when everyone comes together for one cause, and that's one cause is a safer Baltimore. With that said, I would like to shift gears to highlight a few items today, starting with some from the BOE agenda. As many of you heard, the BOE has officially approved the grant award to assist Baltimore City water system users with water bill debt. We initially announced this funding, $15 million for residents in early May. The funding comes from the state's Water Assistance Relief Program, which is designed to assist residents who either struggled or needed to pause their payments during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now that the BOE has approved the grant, we'll be applying this money to people's bills starting next week. The recipients of the grant will receive a letter informing them about the grant and the credit amount. The credit will then also be reflected on their very next bill. I cannot stress how much of a difference this is going to make for so many of our water customers, providing them with some much needed relief and peace of mind. I am deeply grateful that we're now going to be able to distribute this funding, thankful to our partners at the state, and residents have my commitment that this administration will continue taking on the residual effects of the pandemic and what it has had for all of us in Baltimore in any way that we can. And I, of course, want to thank our fabulous governor for his work to get this important funding out to communities quickly. We know here in Baltimore we also have other water assistance programs that we're going to continue to run and uplift. This week, we also approved the final contract for our online SNAP program. This is one of the final pieces of a long effort through the COVID era, as we like to call it, to address the issue of food insecurity in neighborhoods across Baltimore. We have partnered with Amazon, Giant, and Safeway to launch an online SNAP Nutrition Incentive Program, which invests $3.4 million of ARPA funds in fruits and vegetable e-vouchers, outreach, and education program evaluation. Our goal is to increase online SNAP participation, improve the accessibility of and affordability of nutritious food, and promote digital equity. Our program provides online vouchers for SNAP recipients that can be used to obtain fresh fruit, frozen fruits, and vegetables from participating on SNAP retailers, giving people a choice in where they shop and ensuring that they can have healthy foods delivered to them at their homes. We're also continuing the COVID-19 emergency produce box distribution, which has delivered more than 115,000 produce boxes, expanding nutrition incentives at farmers markets, implementing a food as medicine prescription program at MedStar Harbor Hospital, and building the Biopark local food supply chain by improving access to fresh produce with the Farm Alliance of Baltimore's Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy. And now, lastly, before we get to questions, as you know, Baltimore, we are going to host the second annual Charm City Live this year on August the 26th. Last year, thousands of residents flooded out here in front of City Hall to see R&B professional Joe perform. This year, with her as the headline performer, we know that City Hall will not hold that crowd. I am announcing today that we will have her along with Donald Jones and MC Light hitting the Charm City Live stage at East Pratt and Market Streets in the heart of downtown. Baltimore is a remarkable town that has so much to offer. This new location will accommodate many more people, and it's the perfect place for all of us to highlight the uniqueness, small businesses, and all that we have to offer right in our inner harbor. This is an opportunity to highlight our efforts to revitalize our downtown core by bringing music, arts, food, and entertainment for all to enjoy right in the core of downtown. In the days to come, we'll be talking about traffic modifications and any traffic delays that will be updated online. So, thank you all for coming, and now we'll take questions.
Start with the sun.
Emily? And you guys sat next to each other like this. I like that. I like that.
We know that the police are conducting an internal report on their own actions on Brooklyn Day. I know there was some kind of timeline for that. Do you know when we can expect to see the results of that before the confirmation hearing on Commissioner Willoughby?
So what I'll say is Emily, is that is ongoing. What I said to the commissioner that night of the shooting is that I want this done the right way and right now. What I want them to do, we know that sometimes these things we've seen in the past with other ones, they take 2, 3, 4 months. I want us to be able to go through and know every single thing they knew, every action that was taken so that we can respond appropriately. So I'm not going to rush them to complete that, but know that it will be completed fully and that we will go from there.
So the BPD has been offering some of its officers thousands of dollars to voluntarily agree to change shifts for districts after redistricting. They said that there were significant imbalance after the redistricting. Why is that, and what is BPD doing to grapple with that beyond offering money to officers to change?
So they'll be working to change. I think that what you're seeing, Emily, is it's not just about, we know that redistricting had to happen, and we knew that officers were going to have to switch districts. We know that there was a lot of work done by Commissioner Harrison and team to get the city ready for that. And even when you go through the best laid plans, there's always needs to make those adjustments. What you're seeing Commissioner Worley do now is make those adjustments again, because we want these districts now are balancing the workload, balancing out the population, all the things in the city that we haven't done before, and they're going to continue to do things to make sure that we're incentivizing officers to change, but also thinking about how I know that the commissioner has spoken with the police union leadership and others about things that they want to maybe work out together to figure out how we can make sure that the shifts have not only the right amount of officers, but also balancing out the seniority and those who are on each shift.
And then just one more quick one. As you know, there's been a lot of brouhaha over the BGE external regulators. What is your administration doing, if anything, to look into residents' questions and deal with changes that may be done?
Well, Emily, I think you know me very well. You know I do not talk about anything that's in open court in public, but what I will say is that we have a public service commission who oversees BGE, and we have them for a reason, and we will always be here to support our residents in any way that we can for what we're responsible at the city level.
Thank you.
After hearing about the DOT audit, how do you think DOT performed in fiscal year 20 and 21?
Well, I think that if you heard about the DOT audit, you know that it goes back a lot longer than fiscal year 20 and 21, right? We're talking about the highlight of the audit was something that was a contract that was passed on August the 3rd, 1998. I hadn't even started as a freshman in high school when that happened. And I think it's important to note that you also saw what you don't see a lot in audits is that their findings, their follow-ups, they were implemented. And I know that Director Johnson is already starting to put those kind of things in place. And this is what we've been talking about across city government. We had the same thing with DPW in Rubicon, where we went from having paper routes for our solid waste workers who are doing recycling and trash pickup, and now we're going to have digitized routes. Director Johnson is going into and making sure and starting already now on those processes to make sure that these things are electronic. When you hear me talking about consistently why we're now spending millions and millions of dollars to have new technology and new systems built for the city, that's why. Because when you're doing things by paper, when there are no automatic alerts, where there are no automatic things that, hey, this was completed by this division and now automatically goes over to this, we get 20 years of something just sitting out there. And I think that's what we should be focusing on. DOT, the director, has done a great job of starting to narrow those things, but we know that when you're talking about something that happened in 1998, you can't hold that director responsible for that.
Quick follow-up. So
yeah, go ahead.
DPW, it's great getting $15 million grant, 15.8 out of a possible $20 million, so getting a big chunk of that. But we also know that there's $85 million remaining in debt. What's the plan to get that paid for?
Well, listen, we're going to be working with our customers. We also know that there's other service programs out there, right? We have those, and we're Water for All in the programs that we have stand up. DPW has done a great job under former Director Mitchell and now Director Luna's leadership of collecting a lot more water bill money, especially funds that have been sitting out there for years, places that hadn't paid water bills for years, and we're not talking about some older adult in West Baltimore owing $200. We're talking about folks who had thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars of water bills that they've been able to get in. We're going to continue to do that, but we're also going to be very sensitive to the realities of the world, that people are still struggling and reeling from the pandemic. People lost their jobs. People lost their lives. People who were paying water bills in homes died, and now the person who was left there isn't in the financial situation that they would be if they were still together as a unit. We're going to be very sensitive to that and making sure that folks are paying their bills at the same time, because while many folks will want people to think that like the pandemic is over and the impacts are over, the reality is that all of us know that it isn't. People are still physically, mentally, but especially financially still reeling from it in many cases, and we have to be sensitive, and this grant will help us to do that in a deep way.
Mayor, Scott, going back to your acting Commissioner Worley and the nomination, you had told the Sun, I think quoted you as almost 7 weeks ago, saying he's actively searching for a home in Baltimore City as required, of appointees when they're fully. But the property records still seem to show Edgewater, Pasadena, Dundalk, and Glen Burnie. not Baltimore City. BPD said they didn't have any updates. Do you?
Well, the commissioner will, when he will be moving back into Baltimore City, I think it's important to note that the commissioner in his life has spent more time as a city resident than any other place. We know, in fact, that he lived, basically a minute or two walk away from where the mass shooting happened in Brooklyn for many, many years, including when he was a commander in BPD. He will be moving into the city of Baltimore. I know that even before my nomination of him, or him even knowing that he was going to be a police commissioner in Baltimore, that he and his wife were already actively looking in the city. I just happened to beat him to a house in our beloved Northeast.
And I know he gets time after if he pledges.
I don't think it's going to take.
You're confident he will be when if he's confirmed, right?
I don't have any worry about the commissioner moving into the city at all.
No, do you believe he will be living in the city if the council approves him on the day he becomes?
Well, you don't move into a place that you don't live. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
When it comes to overall crime, to start off with the numbers, Ted, they're a lot lower compared to last year. But can we say definitively that the city is safer than it was compared to a year ago today?
If less people died, less people were carjacked, less people were shot, the city is safer.
Mr. Mayor, your reaction to the banner reporting on Housing Authority workers cleaning up the crime scene in Brooklyn Homes before investigators were placing down evidence markers? And I know you're projecting a level of confidence in the investigation, but what is your level of frustration that there hasn't been a murder arrest in this case yet?
Well, listen, I think that I've been around a long time, right? And I've seen cases where folks come out and they arrest a person immediately, and what happens? You've seen it happen, and guess what? That person ends up walking back on the streets of Baltimore. I have the utmost confidence in the detectives who are working this case. They and the folks at Homicide, those detectives, the actual professionals, determine what stuff should be moved and when it should be moved. So I have no concerns about that as well, and we'll make sure that they bring these people in. But if you folks, again, if you know information, share that information. You can share it with me, you can share it with the police, you can share it with We Are Us. We have so many folks that you can share it with, and of course, you can call BPD Homicide at 410-396-2100 to share that information. But they are going down every lead, and we're going to make sure that we bring more people into custody.
Is it frustrating it took a month out, you have a 17-year-old held without bond on misdemeanor charges when first-degree murder suspects get bond all the time? Why is he being held? And his attorney said BPD detectives went to his cousin and pressured him to fabricate a story that he fired gunshots at 12:30 at Brooklyn Homes on July 2nd. Do you have, I don't know if you're on top of that or if you have any comments?
So what I'll say is that I don't determine who's held on bond. That's why my job is to make sure the police are doing their job, and they did their job. Everything else should be taken up with the folks who work at the courthouse and the state's attorney.
Rebecca.
Did they do their job on the 1st and 2nd of July?
Every day they do their job. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Worley said they failed to
Yes,
serve.
sir, don't be rude.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Don't be rude.
Do you have
Yeah.
any update on how close BPD is to making an arrest in that case?
I think that you know me better than know that I'm a Baltimorean, and I'm not going to talk about how close we are and who we're coming after out in the public. You'll know when we put the bracelets on them and we tell them.
30 people were shot, though, and a month has gone by. Does the public have no right to know why no arrest had been made in this case yet?
I think the public knows, and Baltimore knows Baltimore very well. We've already made one arrest, so let's not give out incorrect
No one has
information.
arrested the shooting, though.
So what we'll do continuously is that we have the best homicide and shooting detectives in the world. They will go out there and they will trace every lead down, and this is not just them. Again, we have ATF, FBI, the best in the world working on this case. When we make an arrest, it will be one that sticks, not one that just pleases you.
Just how many detectives are working this case?
You know I'm not going to give that information. We're not going to give out actual information about how our police officers do their work in the public.
Going back to the after
Yes, sir.
action report, Worley set the timeline at 30 to 45 days.
Mhm.
The public would see the after action report. We're at 30 days right now. Have you seen anything similar to an after action report?
When I see it, you'll see it.
BPD is currently pulling detectives to work patrols because staffing shortages are so severe. Could that be impacting this investigation?
No,
How could that not be impacting this investigation if there's a lack of detectives?
because it's not. Homicide detectives are working this case, and they're going to work it.
I have two questions, I think
Yeah,
that's
Emily.
fair. So we did get that original timeline, and you been frank that you don't know when that report is coming. Can we expect it by the second city council hearing? I thought that was sort of like the whole point of having that.
Well, for us, for me, I'm focused on the actual report and the work. I won't speak to the council and their work. They have their job that they're going to do, and I know they're going to do that very diligently. My job is to make sure that the after-action report is done thoroughly, and is done making sure that we get all the information that we need, and we making any policy changes that we need to make from it.
And then regarding the stabilization plans, I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn, especially last week, talking to people, kind of just hanging out. Quite a lot of times it's kind of empty and there isn't anything going on there at all. Even the community center didn't have anyone there. It was locked up. I'm glad to hear that there's something going on today. I'm sure I'll check it out. But a lot of the people feel like it's kind of over. How are you communicating to people that those resources are available, that these events, like this job fair is available? It's useless if people don't know, right?
Well, I think that I would disagree. I know the city administrator was there last week because we had a big movie night with the children there. We have the job fair today. We've been down there consistently. I've been down there consistently. I know Monty has been down there. Agencies have been consistently going through Brooklyn, and we're going to continue to do that in every way that we can. We want folks to always know that we're there and available for them.
Last question.
Many states' attorneys' offices across Maryland, including Bates's office, say the laws within the Juvenile Justice Reform Act must change. Do you support this?
I think that I actually answered this for you guys before. We all know that before anyone else said we needed changes around that, I was leading on this, right? I had a bill in Annapolis to change what was happening with young people who were on home monitoring because I was frustrated that we were continuously seeing them be shot or be perpetrators of things, right? For whatever reason, that bill did not pass the Senate. We know it has to change. I'm going to be down there again this year fighting for those changes, but let me also be very clear about this. It's not about just changing this system. This system has to be built brand new because we know the old system, the adult system, doesn't work for young people, and we know what we have today doesn't work as well. We need to, Maryland needs to lead in building a system that actually works and has that balance of accountability for one's actions and understanding how, especially before they get too far gone in the life, that we're actually able to correct young people's behavior and benefit them and their families.
Thank you all.
Orioles question, Mr. Mayor?
World Series, yes, there you go.
Keep you at the mic. Your level of concern that there's not a signed lease yet, I know there's a certain segment.
I have no level. I have 99 problems, and the Orioles are not one, sir. Have no level of concern about that. And Emily, just because you're there, let me also address this non-elephant in the room. The record label known as Murder Inc. Summer was in 2002, not 2023. So at Artscape, we will have artists that actually will draw out crowds and won't take 2 months to let us know whether they want to perform or not. We want people that want to perform here in Baltimore and bring people out. Thank you very much.
Yeah.